What if I told you one of the most popular personality tests in the world was created by a stay-at-home mom with no formal psychology training? That the test used by Fortune 500 companies, the military, and millions of job applicants wasn't even designed by a psychologist. Yeah, this is the story you weren't told about the Myers-Briggs type indicator. We love to label ourselves INTJ, ENFP, INTP. Maybe you've taken the Myers-Briggs test and thought, wow, that's so me. But have you ever stopped to ask, where did this test actually come from? Who made it? And why did the world just go along with it? Stick with me, because what starts as a quirky origin story soon turns into a tale of obsession, intuition over science, and how a mother-daughter duo turned personal curiosity into a global phenomenon. Our story begins in the early 1900s with a woman named Catherine Cook Briggs. Catherine wasn't a psychologist. She was a writer, a mother, and a deep thinker. But she had a fascination and near obsession with understanding people. She started creating her own personality theories at home long before the word psychometrics was even mainstream. And then she read Carl Jung. Jung's theory of psychological types absolutely lit her up. Introversion versus extroversion. Thinking versus feeling. Sensing versus intuition. She saw it not just as theory, but as a key to decoding human behavior. Now here's where it gets interesting. Instead of becoming an academic, Catherine turned her daughter, Isabel Briggs Myers, into her project. Isabel would go on to take her mother's obsession and transform it into something structured, what we now call the MBTI. But here's the twist. Neither Catherine nor Isabel had any formal training in psychology. They were outsiders, self-taught. And yet, their test would eventually be used by the US military during World War II to place soldiers in roles. Think about that. A personality test created at a kitchen table, influencing decisions in war. Now pause for a second. Do you trust a self-made quiz to decide your future, your job, your career path? Let me know in the comments, have you ever been typed by MBTI? Did it really capture who you are? By the 1980s, MBTI was everywhere: corporate offices, universities, even dating websites. People loved the idea of being a certain type. It was empowering, comforting, almost like astrology, but with fancy letters. But then came the critics. Psychologists began to ask tough questions. Where's the scientific validation? Why do people get different results each time? Why does it ignore traits like emotional stability? And perhaps most damning of all, why is a test with no scientific consensus still used to make real-life decisions? Here's something wild. Despite decades of use, most psychologists don't consider MBTI scientifically valid. Yet HR departments still use it. Self-help gurus swear by it. People continue to wear their four-letter types like a badge of honor. So, is it helpful or just a well-marketed illusion? Maybe the real question is this: do we need it to be scientific? The Myers-Briggs story isn't really about right or wrong. It's about why we're drawn to labels, why we seek clarity in chaos, and how sometimes the things we believe in don't need to be perfect, they just need to resonate. Catherine and Isabel weren't scientists, but they were storytellers. And maybe, just maybe, that's why their test still lives on today. So what's your type? Drop it in the comments, and more importantly, tell me. Do you think it really describes you? Or is it just wishful thinking wrapped in a four-letter code? In the end, maybe the test doesn't define you, but the way you respond to it. That might say more than you think.